All right, good evening, everyone, to the Tuesday, March 12th, 2024 organizational meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, then we'll do roll call. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Amy, can we have a roll call?
Director Asner?
Here.
Director Cuneo?
Here.
Director Muller?
Here.
Director Staten?
Here.
And President Petrov?
Here. We have a quorum. So first on the agenda 2.01, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Would someone like to make a motion for 2.02 governing council election results?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So 2.03 administration of the oath of office to elected officials. So that will be Amy.
I'd like to welcome our two new board members. Please stand up. And please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, your name,
Joe Sartorius,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of school director
of school director
in and for
in and for
Special School District
Special School District,
of St. Louis County, Missouri,
St. Louis County,
to the best of my ability, according to law.
according to law,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Congratulations. All right. Do I have a motion for 2.04 election of president?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Katie Potroff for president.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, I'm gonna put it for it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion for 2.05 election of vice president?
I move to nominate Dr. Cuneo, Vice President.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, Dr. Cuneo, for being the vice president. Do I have a motion for 2.06 election of the secretary?
Motion to nominate Amy Doyle for board secretary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And do I have a motion for 2.07 election of treasurer?
Motion to nominate Deidre Saggerty to serve as the treasurer of the board.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Perfect. All right, now we're going to jump into our business meeting. We have to call an order again. Please be patient. But we won't do the pledge again.
Okay, Director Asner?
Here.
Director Cuneo,
Here.
Director Mueller,
Here.
Director Sartorius,
Here.
Director Suda.
Yeah.
Director Staten.
Here.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Dr. Cuneo. I missed you.
Here.
Vice President
Here.
and President Pacha.
Here. We have a quorum. So first for tonight, motion, or we don't need a motion. 2.01 is senior South Tech student Jackson. I'm gonna ruin this last name, Mander. Thank you. My last name is equally. I gotcha. Take it away.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, we have the honor of recognizing Jackson Mandernack, a senior at South Tech and Afton High Schools. As a student in the South Tech Firefighting and EMT program, led by instructor Chief Hope, he was recently able to put his training into real-world use. His quick thinking and training ended up saving his mother's life. Recently, his mother was unwell with a headache and body weakness. Utilizing the Be Fast assessment he learned in firefighting and EMT, Jackson accurately identified his mother's symptoms and determined she was having a stroke. As a result, they were able to call 911, ensuring she received immediate care, significantly aiding in her recovery process. Jackson's on track to become a certified firefighter and EMT. After graduating high school, Jackson plans to further his dedication to saving lives by joining the paramedic program at Jefferson College and eventually entering the St. Louis County Fire Academy. Please welcome Jackson Mandernack. Chief Hope, are you with us this evening? Come on up for a photo. Board, if you'll put in behind us.
All right.
You're right there.
We're gonna get one to mom and dad so that they can get the, I just want to make sure. I thought you guys might want a picture too. Good, good. Thank you. Congrats.
Ricky. And then next on our agenda, 2.02 is the Board of Education Appreciation.
Thank you. Good evening again. I'm Jennifer Hendry, Executive Director of Communications, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the district students, staff, and community to share our appreciation for the work that you as board members do and the dedication that you demonstrate as SSD Board of Education members. Your tireless efforts, strategic vision, and commitment to fostering a nurturing learning environment have not gone unnoticed. We thank you for your advocacy, the countless hours of volunteer service, and your leadership. As a sign of our appreciation, we have presents for all of you at your places. And inside you'll find an SSD tumbler cup, branded stickers, our inclusive t-shirts, and some student artwork. Thank you for your service to our community. And if we could, we'll do a quick photo of the board together as well.
You want us down there?
Yeah,
or-
let's have you come up.
Okay.
What I send the board t-shirt. Okay, coordinated.
We can have President Pacha in the middle and Vice President Cuneo next to her.
The thing about the pictures, you're just here at the speed.
Angle this a little bit this way. Facing that way. Go. And if you're not just Or. Right, you're sticking, turn your shoulders towards me. There you go. Thank you.
Sure. As we are taking our seats, I would like to read a acknowledgement here from MSBA and Governor Parsons. School leaders devote countless hours to making critical decisions that benefit the school students in our communities throughout the state. To honor our school board members, Governor Parsons has designated the entire month of March this year as Missouri School Board Recognition Month. The goal of this recognition is to increase awareness and understanding of the crucial function of elected board members, and they play in education and success and advancement of our public schools. Thank you tonight to our Board of Education here in Board Recognition Month.
You. All right. Next on our agenda is public comment. While my name's Perlene Walker Fairley wants to come on up, I'm gonna read the rules of the road for this. Welcome to the Special School District of St. Louis County's Board of Education Business Meeting. Up to 30 minutes of each board education business meeting will be set aside to hear public comments. The Board of Education values your input and thanks you for your comment. The guidelines are, each comment is limited to 3 minutes to address any item that is a legitimate part of business of the board. No confidential or personal related topics are allowed. Comments will be read in the order that they were received by email or had signed up on the sheet. And the contents of the email and the sender's name and address, as well as the sheet, will be submitted to the secretary of the board and will become part of the official public record of the meeting. Ms. Walker Fairley,
Hi.
the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Good evening to the Special School District Board, Superintendent, Administration, and all of the SSD stakeholders here in attendance, as well as those with us online. We know that change is inevitable. Change is necessary and essential for the survival of people and organizations. But as leadership changes within organizations, certain essential elements, such as the mission, vision, and values, should remain the same. I have been employed with special school districts since 2001, and I've experienced a number of leadership changes. Each year since I've been employed with SSD, a bleak picture of gloom and doom is usually painted during the budget presentations. But we can all say that SSD's fund balances continue to grow year after year. Currently, we sit at a 70% plus fund balance, and we are led to believe that this is necessary for the survival of SSD. SSD values commitment, collaboration, and equity. SSD should be committed to collaborating with all staff to ensure that an equitable pay scale is achieved. SSD seems to have a for-profit mentality by hoarding the funds and not giving staff raises. The only solution is to fix the wrongs and give staff the raises they deserve. As I look around the room and notice that many of the SDNEA members and supporters here are wearing red for Ed, I wonder, what color do you wear? Is it green? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. David Hope. Floor is yours.
Good evening, Board. I approach you this evening to bring your attention to several points regarding a presentation that you will see this evening about our budget projections for the next few years. After reviewing the presentation, I have several concerns that I want to make sure that have been brought to your attention. Many more can be brought up, but I am limited on my time. First, in a presentation from February 27th, you were told that we have 22,426 students receiving services from SSD and an additional 2,767 being evaluated. Yet tonight, you are going to be told that the projections for next year is 4,000 IEPs. There are a disconnect in those numbers somewhere. Second, salary for fiscal year 24 shows an increase of $60 million. The staff has yet to see any kind of raise that accurately reflects that 16% increase. SSD has pocketed millions off of the great raises SSD says they give to their staff every year because they do not factor in attrition when they negotiate raises and pocket millions, knowing they will never have to pay those out. Keep in mind as you see massive projections for future salaries. Third, this projection for the next several years is beyond disastrous. It wants you to believe that the interest rates are going to plummet soon. You should realize that if they do, it will take several years to get back to pre-pandemic levels. This is just simple economics. SSD will continue to make millions off of its investments for several more years. Next, SSD has not deficit spent since 2010, which was less than $500,000. And suddenly we will deficit spend over $285 million in the next 5 years. This report expects us to believe we will go from adding $29 million to the surplus to deficit spending massive amounts in just a year and do that for 4 more years after that. These items should show you that this report is flawed. SSD is beyond financially solvent with over $371 million in reserve and continue to grow. SSD's board should be driving our direction, not the MSBA. Please recognize we are college-educated stakeholders who are watching what you do with our tax money. Public education is a not-for-profit business to help pad the fund balance is not what it is intended to do. If SDNEA were allowed to have conversations we agreed to in the joint resolution, SSD staff and board would understand we have a strong knowledge of this district's current financial status and its best long-term interest in mind. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Next up, we have Miss Lindsay Weatherby.
Hello, I am also here to speak to the budget, but I'm speaking from a very different place. Obviously, I'm an educator, I'm an SDNEA educator, but I'm also a parent of 3 SSD students with IEPs. I spoke at the governance meeting about the fact that our teachers, our OTs, our PTs, our people are leaving the classroom. There was 2 that I knew of last Monday. There's 5 that I know of that are leaving that school today. There's 1 more that I know is interviewing. That is not okay. We have to support our educators. We have, in the last 5 years, we've added over $100 million to our fund balance. We need to add teachers to these districts where people are drowning. And this is just the district that I'm in, where my children go. As an SDNEA educator, I work with people. I hear their stories. There's a district that has 22 openings right now. And we're talking about not doing the things that educators need to stay here. I'm here for kids and I advocate for kids and everything that I do is for kids, but this is starting to affect my babies. And everything that we do has to be for kids, and every person who is here for kids. And we have to start thinking about, if teachers are leaving, why are they leaving? How can we support them? Yes, it is the budget, but it is also how many people are on caseloads, not just how many people are on caseloads, because we have 1 teacher at my school and that brings down our entire caseload numbers. How many minutes are being serviced? How many different things are happening? How many people are missing their lunches? Look at the data of how many people are turning in. Well, I didn't get my lunch today. I didn't get my plan today. So we're paying people for that when we could be paying educators to do those things so that people could have the breaks that they need, so that people could support students the way that they need to be able to support students. All of this comes back to children. And this is very personal for me because it is not just the children that I care about and that I take care of every single day in my classroom, but these are the children that I take home and that I put to bed and that I take care of. And we have to start retaining educators. We have to. And we are not right now. I am telling you that across the district, people do not feel supported. They do not feel cared about. They feel like SSD does not care about them. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people say things like, I'm afraid of my job, losing my job. I can't say anything. I can't do this. These are real problems that we need to start addressing. We have to. Because it's not getting better. It's only getting worse. And with what's happening right now, look at this room. Look at what is happening right now. We have to change the narrative for kids. We have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for the approval, 4.01 approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? First, on the superintendent report, we have 5.01 SSD budget and projections update.
Good evening, President Patra, Vice President Cuneo, Dr. Macklin, and Board of Directors. Tonight, I am Deidre Sagerty, Chief Operations Officer, and I have with me Dr. Jim Cummings, who's a CPA. Dr. Cummings has 25 years in education. He is currently a superintendent at Neosho School District. 19 years in central office administration, 13 years as a superintendent, and you can see the rest of his resume. Tonight, he will come and speak with you about our budget and projections.
You want that piece? Well, first of all, thanks for allowing me to the opportunity to help support the 25,000 students that you serve and those that contribute to their education. And I appreciate the teachers. I've got one, I'm married to one that's retiring for the second time, and they convinced her to go back half-time next year. So I guess, and 3 children that are all educators. So I do have, with the CPA background, and school finance has just been the natural for me. And as I move from that period where I want to continue to serve children, I just don't want to do it 24/7, which is what's called upon as a superintendent. So retiring in June and going to be working with school districts, much like yours, on just where they're at and where they maybe hope to go. Before we jump in, I want to give just a few caveats. First of all, forecasting, you're always working with assumptions. You're taking your prior experience, knowledge of trends, waiting on what the legislators are going to decide on funds. So when you're projecting, forecasting, there's always some assumptions, some guesstimates based upon some prior history. And then for me, just continuing to dig into some of the nuances of SSD, school finance has a tremendous number of layers, and SSD adds some additional layers because of the way the state funding works in relation to the special district. As we talk through some of the information tonight, I want to make sure that we're clear. It's my understanding that in the past, these conversations, a lot of the budgeting has included the operations teachers fund, which are Fund 1 and 2, and additionally have had capital in them. What we're going to talk about tonight is just operations, which is Fund 1 and Fund 2, the general operating costs of the district and the teacher pay and benefits that come out of Fund 2. And the rationale for that is because reserve percentages are based only on operating expenses. They don't factor in capital. Capital is more of a discretionary item that has a less cyclical nature to it. So when we're looking at trends and forecasting, when you take capital out of it, you'll see in some of the graphs, you can really get trend data when capital is not in there. So that may be a discussion for another time. So let me just quickly give you some history of the things that I have tried to work with Deidre and Dr. Macklin on since getting the opportunity to do this work. You really have to, in order to dig into some of these things, you have to know a little bit about the history. So I went to third-party documents to try to pull that history. Went back to the 2001 ASBR, have pulled all of the revenues, expenditures, fund balances, all of the capital purchases and things, the leases that you have, really to get an understanding. And then also to get a historical perspective of where your fund balances have been over the last 2+ decades. The current year, working with Cynthia to get information out of Lawson. I've not worked with the Lawson financial program, so she's helping pull some of the data. Deidre as well have dug into the SSD state finance reports. As I mentioned, it's a little bit different because typically you can go on any school district in the state of Missouri as a patron. You can go to the school finance tab, click on it, go to the payment transmittal, and you can look at what every school's weighted ADA is. SSD is a little bit different because the free and reduced number that plugs into that is fed from DESI. It's not picked up off of core data. So working with DESI to try to get some of that understood. I've read the payroll or the joint resolution documents and dug into the payroll reports. So that really gets us then into the projections and some of the things we're going to talk about today. You can see the different methods that we've or that I've tried to attack in order to have a better understanding and to be able to better counsel Dr. Macklin. So what we know that there's going to be an impact on state revenues, approximately $2 million this year. What has happened is in FY21, the special district had 7,000 plus what's called weighted ADA. And that's a combination of your average daily attendance, your summer school, the weighting that you get for IEP students, LEP students, and free and reduced lunch students. That all rolls down into a weighted ADA calculation, which is what they pay Prop C off of. They pay your basic formula and your classroom trust fund. So this year, Prop C and the classroom trust fund lost the pandemic provision, which was the provision that let you go back to the 21 numbers to get paid on. Next year, that pandemic provision falls off of the basic formula. So next year, the hit in revenues will be about $10 million from state money. One of the teachers mentioned that we do have declining interest earnings. That's a combination of two things. One is I think we've taken it from 17 to 13.5 as a projection. The fund balance falling is going to decrease the amount that is invested. And then the indication is that the rates will start to trickle down slowly. We'll get a little bit of an impact in FY26 when they reassess. All right, Deidre, you want to tackle that one?
Thank you. So we're looking at a projected budget for 24 that is 13 million more than the original budget and 80 million more than FY23's budget, which is a 16% increase. Modeling projections using expenses through January indicate we actually may end up approximately $6 million higher than the amended budget. The graph, as you see on the left, shows the significant increase in total monthly increases or expenses. The average increase in monthly expenses over FY 23 through January is 17.95%. A low of 13% in July to a high of 22% in January. The graph on the right shows that the increase is due to the increases in monthly wages and benefits. The average monthly wage increase July through February is 16% over FY 23.
Thank you. So I do this graphically. I think one of the things we'll recommend also, you'll see a few slides, is that the cash flow report be reviewed monthly with the board. And you can also see, when I said talking about trends, you can see that the school business operations are pretty cyclical. The revenue side, you saw pretty year over year, they look a lot the same. Same with expenses, but the anomaly is this year. And, you know, I can speak a little bit to what I see in just the raw numbers. But this is evidence that there has been some change in wages and benefits. I mean, it's there in blue in this case. All right, so talk a little bit about diverging trends. I've already mentioned this is just the detail on the state formula money and how we get to that. The estimate right now for FY 24 is about 58 million in state dollars. That includes Prop C, Classroom Trust Fund Basic Formula. The estimate next year is that it'll be down to about 47 million. So we got that trend going this way, and we've got the wage trend going the other way. So we've added at least 60 million to the budget in wages this year. And I mean, I've fought for teacher wages and staff wages for my entire career. The problem is when you're spending down reserves, you have to be a little bit careful about how you do that, because those are recurring costs. And so if you spend down 10 this year, it's going to be 10 next year, and that kind of continues. So this is more about not how to handle it, but just being aware that we've got some things down the road that probably need to take a look at. So this is, again, operations only. And I mean, for what it's worth, we're pretty good. We feel pretty good about the FY 25 revenues. Worked with Steve on those, kind of run some numbers and compared, he and I. And then when you get to FY 26, still pretty confident in the revenue numbers. You start getting out to FY 27, you're starting to make a greater amount of guesses. And then on the wages, I think it's important to look at, this is a projection with 3% in total wage increase. So I want to make sure that there's an understanding that 3% wage increase doesn't necessarily mean a 3% raise for every employee. It could be a 20% raise for every employee, and you cut some positions to make up that difference. This is just if we have an overall increase of $11 million in wages, that would be a 3% increase. So you can just see what that does moving out, and then also the impact that it has moving on out on the reserve percent. All right, changing cash. This was mentioned in the comments. There have been only 2 years since 2000 where there was a negative cash flow in the operations, which again, operations and the teacher fund. FY 20 or FY 01 and FY 10, and they were both under $1 million. there is a good amount of confidence that this year will end somewhere near that 46,000 or 46 million in the red. We've done that two ways. We did that with Steve's projections on revenue and our current budget on expenses. And then I've done a modeling of the prior 4 or 5 years of expenses, where we would be in January, extrapolating that out to the end of the year. And they both come pretty close to that 46 million. Then moving on, again, as you get further out to the right, you have a little bit more estimating going on, but you're still looking at 46, 66, 65 in successive years. That is a whole lot. Did I miss? I think I'll go past this slide. Okay. What questions can I attempt to answer?
Dr. Cuneo?
Instead of using a fund balance, we talked before, at least we've had meetings before that talked about putting it in a month. In other words, how many months can we survive without this? And felt that this was probably for us as good a measure as anything else. With the measurements that you have, with the projections that you have, how many months would that translate in that we have?
So great question. The way the reserve percentage works is, I'm going to use round numbers so it's easier for me. Let's say the operating expenses for this year was 500 million. If you had 50% reserves, that would mean you had 250 million in the bank. And if you just take that 50% times 12, that would say you have 6 months of reserves. The challenge with that a little bit is you don't just spend the money evenly across the year.
Down throughout.
So in 2004 or 5, the district made a tax anticipation note of 7 million. Because what happens is a lot of your money comes in December and January. So October, November, cash flow gets a little tight. They go get a $7 million tax anticipation note. As soon as taxes come in, they pay it off. That's the only time in the last 24 years that's happened. But part of the reason you keep that fund balance is a cash flow cushion through that period of time.
I do not want to go to the banks. And especially not now with the rates we are, but I just should not go to the banks and get a loan on this. That's why I like to see it in months.
Fair question.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Slide 6. Deidre and I spoke about the IEP count. You know, that's part of the state funding formula. And relative to the 23,000 students that we service, this number of 4,000 stands out. Can you comment, or one of you comment, on why that number is at 4,000 versus the 23,000 students who have IEPs?
You want me to tackle that, or you want to give it a whirl?
I'll give it a whirl.
Okay.
And Wendy will step in if I
Appreciate
muck it up.
Appreciate it.
Basically what that is, we don't get to claim the over 50%. So less than 50% is what we get to account for. And so we that's why you see that differentiation in that for the IEPs.
Is it the opposite?
The opposite.
No. If it's over 50%.
If it's over.
It goes on to our
I'm
budget.
sorry, I said it the reverse.
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah.
If what is over 50%?
Service.
The service.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So if, as I mentioned, that's one of the things that's different. You can't typically in a school, you can go look at screen 6 in core data. I think it's screen 6, and it has the free and reduced count. And you just pull that over and that's what you run your projections off of. This number is plugged from DESI. So I had a little bit of a conversation. The highest it's been in FY20, it was 5,090. In FY23, it is 3,843.
I had a question about the weighted ADA numbers. Could you speak a little bit more about that? You were talking that they were changing and confused.
Right. So the state for several years has paid $6,375 per weighted ADA. It is going up to $6,700 next year. I feel pretty comfortable they will fund it. It's supposed to go to $7,100 in FY26. Not so comfortable about that one. But the weighted ADA is calculated by your ADA. And FY23, the district's ADA was 1,498 students. And so that is the SSD students and their average attendance. So I'm gonna round. If you had 2,000 students and they were here 75% of the time, that would give you 1,500 ADA. Okay, that's the first number. Summer school, you take the total hours of summer school, divide it by 1,044, and that gives you a summer school ADA number. SSDs was 53 students last year for summer school. So your just general weighted ADA for FY23 was 1,551 students. As opposed to at the peak in FY21, it was 2,411 students. So not quite 900 less. From there, that's just ADA. The weighted part comes with how many free and reduced lunch students do you have? You get it. There's a threshold for that. How many LEP students and how many IEP students? And you get weightings for those. In 23, you get an additional weighting of 121 for free and reduced lunch students. You got 3,843 for IEP students, and you didn't get any additional bump for LEP students. So in this current year, you can claim weighted ADA of 7,315 students because you got to go back to FY21 and pick up that number. In FY25, you can only go back to 24 and 23.
Okay. It's the higher two, so you get to choose. You can project off of FY24, but we choose not to do that because it could hurt us in the long run. So normally districts choose between the prior two school years.
Right.
If these numbers are correct, I'm not doubting they're not correct. I'm just looking at, so that shows roughly a 50% increase in wages from 21 to 27. And a 33% increase in wages and a 50% increase in benefits.
Oh, okay. You're going back to a different slide, aren't you?
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
The diverging trends. Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. If you take the 407 million and compare it to FY23 319, that's your 88 million.
Yeah.
And then the benefits are 146 back to 117.
That's a 50% increase in bennies
Yes, sir.
and a 33% increase in wages. And roughly that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm thinking through that correct.
Yes, sir.
President
Wow.
Petrov, did you answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Concerns? Yes.
Hi, I know I'm brand new. I've been a board member for about 45 minutes.
But you were a board member before.
But yes, I was a board member in University City for 9 years until yesterday. So, yes. So yes, I do know boardmanship. I know I'm new, but I've been in the governing council since 2020 and I think I just need some more information to really understand how we got where we are. When I look back, I see a 4.9% increase for certified staff. I see some benefits increases. I'm not understanding how we are up to a 17.9% and 22% increase in spending year over year. And I really find it challenging to understand this budget. I'm asking myself questions like, how do we get here? How are we sure that the data that we're using, is as accurate as possible? Because I'm seeing numbers being interpreted in different ways in different situations. And I'm finding that kind of confusing. And then my question is, what do we do next? Because this is not sustainable. I don't want to walk on a board and have everything go down in flames, and nobody here does. Nobody in this room wants that for our children and for our community. So, as I said, I'm really just in the process of assimilating all of this information, but I really do have a lot of questions that I really don't understand, in particular, how we got to this spending increase. And I'd like to know if there's been more data on that, or if we need to ask for more data on that to really break down where this money is going.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can speak to that just briefly in that we can produce the year over year object code accounts that will show you 6111 wages, 6131 extra duty. I mean, you can just go down and look year over year, and you can do it. Fund 1 would give you any classified wages, and Fund 2 would give you all certified wages. So administrators, teachers, counselors, anybody that holds a certificate. And you can just, we can break it down year over year between those two account lines. That graph, the graph on the right is simply all 6,100 and 6,200 object codes selected over the last 5 years.
And have we looked at the increase by category based on what's been negotiated and accepted as increases?
So to answer your question to that, Director Suda, when we analyzed and looked at really just the cost as it relates to salaries and benefits, I think also we provided some benefits for staff last year. And when you look at the cost of what those pieces entailed, really line by line, piece by piece, you see where we get the large increase. In the presentation tonight on slide 7, the change from FY23 to FY24 was 319 million to 371 million. And so those strictly came in because of the large increase as it relates to salaries and benefits. The 4.5 or 4.9 that you saw that I will address, it was one of our bargaining units. And again, that's just one of our bargaining units. So the other bargaining units, and I think you're speaking from the governing council presentation that you saw that.
I went through and I looked at several presentations to the board and the governing council over the past year or two to try to understand where we are.
And I think it's clear to need to note here, and I mentioned a little bit in the governing presentation on Monday, is just that the information at times that were presented to the board and to the governing council was the same information. And so when you look at the overall increase in wages and benefits, that's where the large increase comes in.
Thank you. I'd like to really take a look at those numbers at some point to understand this better.
And we can provide you with that information. Our board did a deep dive on January 9th into what these pieces are, and we'll be doing another deep dive on March 26th.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much. Oh. Just want to say on behalf of the Board of Education, Jim Cummins, we thank you for your service.
Next on our agenda, 5.02, we have the 2024, 2025, 2026, 12-month staff holiday schedule.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Potroff, Dr. Macklin, Board of Directors. I'm Wendy Pendergrass, Chief Academic Officer of Schools and Programs. Tonight, I'm going to go over and ask for your approval for the 24-25 and 25-26 school calendars for both the SSD schools and programs and our court calendars that are both in there. Sneaked it on my didn't. Okay, so for the 24-25, if you remember way back when, on January 3rd of 23, I did a calendar presentation where we originally asked for the 24-25 calendar to be approved. That calendar specifically ended our school year after Memorial Weekend. It was not a popular calendar. So we went back and looked at some different options, working with multiple groups to see if we could change, but still unite with our calendar. It is the purpose of special school district and the superintendents to really work together so we get some common times, common breaks, starting and ending schools in the right time. So of course, for the 24-25 school year, we will still start with staff on August 5th. We do still have a fall break. We will have a virtual instruction on November 5th due to it being a major election. And with this calendar, we are going to be able to end first semester prior to winter break, which is a nice break.
Yeah.
And everything for both our SSD schools and programs. Our spring breaks are very similar with the majority of our partner districts. We shared this calendar at the superintendent roundtable that Dr. Macklin had, and we have very similar. The majority of our partner districts are also using the spring break. We have staff work days that follow, and then this calendar, as long as we don't have 6 snow days, we will be able to start ESY on June 2nd. But the most important part of this calendar is that we will end our school year prior to Memorial Weekend. So staff and students will be out before Memorial Weekend. So slide. For the 24-25 court calendars, I use the same scenario. If you remember, our court calendars use the 9 weeks on working with students in schools and then 3-week off break. We do send a letter to the commissioner every year asking permission to start school prior to the August date that the statute says. We get permission because of our students in that program. They always grant us permission. So that calendar will be as such. And then for the 25-26 calendar, we started building it. We shared this also with the superintendents at the roundtable. Some districts do have a 25-26 calendar, some do not. But we are all collecting calendars and trying to use these dates. Very similar with our staff working days. This calendar also gets our staff out before Memorial Weekend, adding in the 6 snow days, the fall breaks, the winter breaks. The spring breaks are matching with some of our larger districts. And then again, we have our court calendar for the 25-26 worked out for you. And then finally, for your information, we will be providing our 12-month staff, the 24 and 25 school year holiday memo, and then also the 25-26. What that does is it lets all of our 12-month staff know what the holidays are, what the breaks are, giving on how we count the calendars out. Our 260 employees, sometimes the way it falls, we work 261, 262 days. So we have to have a non-working, non-paid day that we add in. So this memo really helps clarify and get everybody on the same page on what days we will be working and what days we will recognize. And that is for 25-26. What questions might you have?
I have a question about, when you said snow days, are we still gonna do the bank-in 3 and then go online for any more, or
Yes,
the
ma'am.
special thing that you call when
You are absolutely
Zoom?
correct. Yes. We have to build in 6 snow days.
Oh.
That has not changed yet. But what we do is do the AMI days.
AMI.
Yes. So if we go through, we are blessed to have schedules that are built that we are able to have several snow days before we have to make any days up.
Right.
That's also including the AMI. If we would go through those days, we could also do AMI days. and we still would not have to make those days up.
Perfect. So,
Yep.
yeah, barring an avalanche coming
Yes.
down.
A blizzard.
No,
A
right.
blizzard of such, yes, we haven't had those in a while.
No. Any other questions about the calendar?
You know which districts we're off cycle with.
The majority of the districts, I can definitely put that in the Friday memo to show what districts we are on. I can think of two off the top of my hand. Dr. Macklin might can think of more that are not following this calendar, but
Do you think there will ever be a time we have a universal calendar?
boy, I hope so.
So do I.
Wouldn't it be great?
It would be great.
Yeah,
Would be.
yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
very much. All right, do I have a motion for 6.01 approval of the consensual items?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Action item. Let's get the motion on the motion first, and everyone's got their paper memo. Do I have a motion for 8.01 increase hourly pay for adult education hourly faculty?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a question.
You have questions before we're ready. I'm ready to vote.
Yeah, we won't vote until he's done.
Okay, got it.
So,
Okay.
go ahead.
Good evening, Director Patrov, Board of Directors, Dr. Macklin. I'm Kevin Andrew. I'm the Executive Director of Career and Technical Education and College and Career Readiness. I'm here to talk to you about the wage increase that we're seeking for our hourly adjunct faculty that we use in our adult education program. So our adjunct faculty are part-time staff. They predominantly support our LPN students in the clinical setting. So when they go out to long-term care facilities, the hospital setting, they're meeting the students there. They're serving as preceptors. They're providing additional guidance and supporting them as they navigate through that clinical experience. We do sometimes use them to support in the classroom as well, but that's predominantly the setting they're used. As you're aware, the wage for nurses continues to become more and more competitive in the St. Louis metropolitan area. The way that we determine this $42 an hour wage that we were seeking is based off ZipRecruiter's data as of February of 2024. The average wage for a clinical nurse educator in St. Louis is $42 an hour. And so we were seeking to match that $42 an hour. It's important to note that our data does make up a good portion of that average. So even though we're seeking to be the average right now, it shows that we are a little bit below what market rate is. This is going to be budgetarily neutral. So the dollar amount that this is going to cost is $17,450. However, we're going to offset that with a tuition increase. We have not done a tuition increase for the LPN program since COVID. We kind of held pat through 2020 and 2021. We're now at a point where we've got a very strong and stable enrollment in that program. And so it's time that we look inward at what our tuition rate is. We've also seen that other programs in the market have had tuition increases where we've stayed at a flat rate. As you recall, we moved that program from the Met Center to North Tech. We've always been at South Tech, but now having the program at North Tech, we've seen a dramatic increase in applications to that program. Moving it from Wellston to Florissant. Florissant's just more centrally located in St. Louis County. We're also seeing an uptick of enrollment from the Illinois side. And so we started 35 students the day after graduation. For this most recent class, we used to start 32. So we've seen an increase in the number of students that we're starting in the program. And then we had on the wait list, the most students we ever had on a wait list rolling into the start of a semester. So with those pieces, we think now is the time where we can do a moderate tuition increase. To cover this cost, it'll equal out to about $168 per student is what the tuition increase would be.
Does anyone have any questions, concerns? All right, so let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Or is this roll call?
No,
Oh, okay, thank you. Once a meeting. All in favor for 8.01, the motion to increase hourly pay for adult education hourly faculty, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we have do I have a motion for 9.01 closed meeting of the Board of Education on March 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m. or following this meeting, March 26th at 5 p.m., April 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All roll call. Try Richard.
Director Eisner,
Yes.
Director Mueller,
Yes.
Director Slayton.
Yes.
Director Sartorius.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
Vice President Sligo
Yes.
and President Petrov.
Yes. Would someone like to make a motion 9.02 for the approval of minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I abstain.
Thank you. 9.03 executive meeting action items. The following items were approved during the executive meeting on February 27th, 2024. Employments, resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, extra duty pay, non-renewal of professional staff, and one settlement agreement. Board regulations are anything. Board communications. Does that anyone have anything to share? I do. I always do. Hats off to New Warner again, my son's school, who had amazing time on Friday for their talent show. Kids did great. Everyone had a good time. I appreciate a school that does such great. The new music teacher involved everyone. One kid did a animation that he made. My son sang. One kid did his basketball. Whatever your talent was, it was really neat. It was really neat to see. So I appreciate them for that. This Thursday, for those who have students who in high school, for SSC students at New Warner after school, I want to say 5:30 is the transitions fair. Highly recommend going to that if you have a special needs SSD kid, because it has everything from summer camps to workforce education to everything that comes after secondary education school. I'm done tripping over my words. Yes.
I'd like to recognize the career fair that the communications department has put on. It was held just this past Saturday at Suffolk County Tech. Just had a chance to be there. It was excellent. They had teachers, students, lots of parents, and lots of folks exhibiting job careers, and that's going to be offered twice more, I believe, at Marquette and Rockwood somewhere, and North County Tech.
Each year we host the St. Louis County Career and Showcase Pathway Showcase, and this past weekend was our last one for the year. We did have one the previous weekend at North Tech and before that at a Rockwood High School. So we do that annually to provide opportunities for our kids to be exposed to programs and training that doesn't necessarily require a college degree. So we invite a variety of organizations and businesses to come that might have an apprenticeship, internship, or some other kind of training to help our students see a little bit more of the opportunities that are available.
That's wonderful.
That was an
Thank you.
excellent activity.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Usually when
Awesome.
when a board member leaves, we tell them thanks, let everybody, and if anybody wants to join in or jump in after I'm done, fine. I just personally wanted to thank Dr. Byers for being here. I'd like to thank Tiffany Hudson for being here. I'd like to thank them for all their work. It was a pleasure working with them. I'd like the minutes to reflect that.
Yes.
And maybe we can send them maybe a copy of the minutes just so that they know. Thank you. If anybody else wants to chime in on that, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I said my thanks a lot of times to Dr. Byers in our last meeting, but also thank you, Tiffany, for your leadership and being new to the board, a lot of support. I do want to say something else that doesn't, if anybody wants to say something on Tiffany's behalf. Okay.
Yeah, I want to extend my thanks to Tiffany. I mentioned Dr. Byers last meeting, but Tiffany, her parent perspective was very valuable for us and very necessary, leading with her heart and everything that she shared with us in our meetings and behind closed doors. So we're going to miss her. So.
I just want to say, representing Hazelwood School District, I don't want to leave on a somber note, but I just can't go on without acknowledging, the student in Hazelwood and that entire situation and how I just, my heart breaks for every student involved. And to be recognized for the work that we do as a board, it just doesn't really feel that great when our students are suffering across this nation. And we feel it quite personally in St. Louis County today. And so to have educators here showing up and advocating for themselves to be able to do their work as well as they can for babies. I just employ you all to just go out and love on our children as much as you can. We are here advocating and fighting for you. I promise that work is being done. But just love on our babies. My heart is heavy for the hurt and rage that our children are carrying right now. And I just couldn't end without saying, like, continue to wrap your arms around our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Calendar of events.
Oh.
No, I agree. We can just say, just mention.
10.01 calendar events are all on board docs. Now, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nobody opposed. Thank you very much.